Hey Ryan, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Lewis, thanks for having me.
Thank
Pleasure to
you.
be here.
Thank you for taking the time. For those who do not know you, by this time the community knows how these go. Who are you? What are you currently building?
Yeah, so my name is Ryan Dietz. I'm the founder CEO of Aerovec and Kavarii. For those who don't know, Aerovec is a private aviation DApp that operates in a similar way to Uber, but not really. It's just the easiest way to kind of quick elevator pitch it. But essentially, what it does is it connects aviation businesses, pilots, drone pilots, or whatever with their community, in their local area to schedule and charter private flights or any kind of aerial services. If you want to go jump out of an airplane with a parachute, or if you want to charter a plane down to LA or whatever, you could do that real simply through our application. And then Kavarii is a decentralized video sharing platform built 100% on chain that really kind of promotes free speech and freedom of opinion and things like that, which uses NFT technology. And we can get into that a little bit deeper later on. But it's a new type of use case for NFTs and user ownership and transferability and trustless systems and all that kind of cool jazz.
I think most community members know Aerovec via the meter bonding system on Elrond on the My Exchange. When did you guys join the Elrond network, and what were your first incentives to do so?
Yeah, so we were one of the first projects, or I guess I could say I was one of the first developers to really kind of dive into Elrond. I found them when they got listed on Binance, 2017, something like that. I was sniping for new projects coming along, and they popped up. And so I did a little bit of light research and, saw what their value prop was, with fast transactions, cheap transactions. And at that time, I was building a lot of stuff on Ethereum, and I knew there was, huge scalability issues, not at that time, but they were coming. So, being proactive and kind of wanting to see how the future was going to go. I didn't see the future with Ethereum for, the type of stuff I wanted to build, because people don't want to pay, $100 for a transaction, and so on and so forth. So that's really what caught my eye about Elrond. And, at that time, there wasn't a lot of developer tools and things like that. A lot of that was still coming out. They were a very new project and still are, in a sense. But I really like the idea of growing with them and really kind of being integrated in parts of development that they were releasing and things like that. So it was really cool to kind of join early and watch it grow, and it still is. And seeing how the technology is advancing and all the new projects coming in and building and things like that. So we were happy to join Meta Bonding as our first project, and it was great for exposure with Aerovec. And kind of helped us get that grassroots, growth mechanism in place. And the rest is kind of history. I think everybody, kind of knows what's going on now. But, as a starting point, it was a very exciting time to, grow with the new blockchain.
You've already touched on the advantages of the Elrond blockchain. Other than low transactions and scalability, what would you say are the biggest perks of building on Elrond for you?
Yeah, for me personally, it's Rust smart contracts. I've developed in Solidity before, and I never really felt that comfortable with Solidity. It is a fairly simple, smart contract language to write, but Rust really kind of spoke to me when I started building, because I never really messed with Rust before Elrond came around. I'm somewhat familiar with it, but after really kind of diving in and seeing the flexibility and the different things you can do compared to Solidity, it really kind of won me over. And so I'd say that, my biggest, I'm the biggest fan of the Rust smart contract. So any blockchain building with Rust, I think is very intelligent on their part. It's a very scalable solution. And, the way Rust operates at the core level is very fast and efficient. So, it's a great move on Elrond's part to go with Rust. And, as a developer, I couldn't be happier developing with Rust. So that would definitely be my core choice, I think.
Speaking from both a personal and a business point of view, what are the specific tasks that you need to perform on the Elrond blockchain on a day-to-day basis?
So, Elrond being so young, a lot of blockchains are young. I mean, it's not just Elrond, but, development moves so quick. So, for me, it's the upgrading the smart contracts is probably the hardest part for me. Elrond's constantly pushing new updates with new features, functions, and sometimes it's not legacy supported. So you've really got to stay on your toes as a smart contract developer to keep up with the new updates. And it's not always published to the docs in real time, so you can't. It's real tough to stay up to speed with it. So you've got to really be engaged with the developer community and paying attention to new alerts coming out that if a block or a validators are needing to update. Some kind of change has been made, right? So you got to figure out what that change is. So I think that's the hardest part for me is keeping up with the advancements. It's a great thing. They need to advance and get better, which is always a bonus. But from a developer standpoint, when you spend so much time writing a smart contract in a certain version, and then the version changes, and now this function no longer exists, or it changed to this, it definitely keeps you on your toes. So I think that's my biggest pain point. From the front end development and things like that, there's a lot of cool tools, and a lot of it's written in React, which is the preferred choice apparently for the core team and for a lot of developers on Elrond. I personally don't like React. I do for some things, but I'm more of a old-fashioned developer, I guess you could say. I use pure JavaScript and some PHP and things like that, because I come from the early days of the internet, and not to really age myself here, but I started developing in the early 2000s, and things were a lot different back then. You didn't have a lot of these libraries and stuff that you do now, and so I got really used to writing in those old languages. So a lot of those aren't supported through the docs and stuff like that. So you've got to create your own API mechanisms and curl requests, and not to get too techie here, but you've got to really be creative, because you can't just lean on a library or a Git repo that's already been developed in PHP, for instance, because I don't think anybody out there is really using that stuff. So I prefer it, and it's always served me well. But I think that's probably the biggest challenge is creating your own path and not having a lot of support when you're on that path, because you're one of the only few people doing it that way.
Mm-hmm. You've already talked about the community and how much you've guys grown. I think that especially when it comes to aviation, there's a very limited sort of community, because there aren't that many people in that space. What do you think are the perks, or what do you see are the capabilities of the blockchain technology, especially when it comes to aviation and that whole, let's call it genre,
niche
so
market.
to say. Yeah, niche market.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's something that, we knew early on that aviation isn't, necessarily for everybody because of different reasons. But in my opinion, the main reason is exposure and kind of the stigma that comes with it. When you think of private flying, you think of $10,000 an hour for a private jet, reserved for only the elite, and which is nice, and it is, to an extent. But there's a lot of other options also. And, the whole idea for Aerovec came from personal experience when I was flying around. The last tech company I had, I was constantly traveling to San Francisco, LA, and things like that for business meetings. And driving is kind of out of the question, because you're going to spend all day driving from Northern California to LA. It's a 9 hour drive, and you're not going to just drive down there and have lunch and come back. It's not feasible. So luckily, a buddy of mine was a pilot, and he kind of exposed me to the different possibilities with smaller aircraft that were more affordable. So I was paying about $150 to $200 an hour to fly around, and that was kind of the aha moment. And so I think one of the biggest issues with aviation being a niche market is the lack of exposure. It's the lack of knowing that this is possible, or you're capable of doing this. If you and a couple buddies want to fly down to Tahoe for a weekend, nobody would ever think to go charter a flight. It's not the first thing you think of. But if we can expose them to what's possible, and hey, you can do it. 4 guys can hop on a plane, and $500 for all of you, split. Now it's affordable, and you have more time to ski on the slopes and stuff like that. So for us, it's a lot of education and exposure, and introducing the different possibilities for users to hopefully bring it outside of that niche market, and get more adoption from people flying for the first time privately and stuff like that. So, there's definitely an uphill battle with that. Anytime you have to provide education and selling a product, it's very difficult. You got to have one with the other. You've got to educate the consumer, customers, users, whatever you want to call it, to really give this a shot and try it. Because I think once you do, you're going to learn that this is amazing. I want to do this every time. No more commercial air flights where I have to go through TSA and get felt up and have them throw my shampoo away and all that kind of weird stuff. So it's definitely a better way to go if you can have a way to go do it. And that's what we plan to do, is give you a way to go do it. Then you can try it out for yourself. And if you like it, amazing. If not, then, maybe it's just not for you. And we understand, but, we're going to keep pushing forward either way and try to educate the consumer on why you should at least try it.
Maybe also talking about Kavarii, obviously there are many video sharing platforms or video platforms in general. If you could just quickly explain what is the main concept or the main idea behind Kavarii and what makes it so special?
Yeah, so, the technology side, what's special is the NFTs, right? So we're all used to these JPEG NFTs, which are amazing. We're all addicted to them in a sense or two, but there's a lot of use cases for NFTs that haven't been explored. The video side of things really it's a real interesting concept to use NFTs for, because when you create video content, like you in this interview, for instance, you upload it to YouTube, and now YouTube owns your video and they have control over it for the most part, and blah, blah, blah. But with an NFT, you can store it in your wallet, you can send it, you can burn it, you can sell it. You have full control over that NFT, just like you will with the JPEG. And so why not, try it with videos and try it with stock footage and things of that nature. So that's really the driving force behind the technology side of it. But on the moral ethical side, I'll call it, and I made a tweet about this yesterday because it really kind of hits home to me in the documentary Social Dilemma on Netflix, which I encourage everybody to watch if you haven't seen it yet.
Me too.
It'll blow your mind, if you're not aware of these things yet. But me, really coming up in the technology space in the early 2000s and all the way up till now, I've seen the rise of big tech, and I've seen how it's really changed into this conglomerate of information. And it's the information that they want to push on you, not the information necessarily that you want to see. It's a very tailored experience, but it can have a lot of malicious intent behind it. Based on what advertisers want to push and political entities want to push on you, or whatever the case is. You may think you're rabbit holing into a certain category, but really you're being spoon-fed what they want you to know. And it's a very scary scenario. There's a lot of great people pushing ethical development now, and it's going to take time for people to wake up and be exposed to, the issues with it. But, for Kavarii, this is our way to combat that, to give the power back to the people in the sense that it's your data. You're in control of it. We're not selling your data. We can't. We don't ask, or we don't take any personal information from you, all the way down to emails and passwords, which don't exist on our platform. So, it's really a moral high ground for us to look at it and say, okay, we want to have ethical development. We want to put the user in control of their own destiny, in the sense that they control the content they see. They control the content that's going out, as long as it's within the law, obviously. But that kind of freedom of opinion is getting lost nowadays with these different platforms. And, it's a scary sight when you have to self-censor yourself. And, I just don't like that at all. And I need a way to fight back, and this is my way to fight back, is to build a platform that gives you an alternative to these other tech giants that, we all have come to love to hate, so to speak.
What sort of application or system do you think is still missing from the Elrond network that might actually help you in your quest to build the things that you're building?
Yeah, I think the biggest need right now is developer support. You look at other blockchains, Solana, for instance, they have direct communication with the core devs, anytime you need support building something. Elrond doesn't really have that, although, you can reach out to Lucian and Sever sometimes and get some information. But, Elrond's not a very big team, and they've got a lot going on, so they're extremely busy, right? So, it's no fault of their own, but we need some kind of developer support mechanism. Right now we have the Elrond dev channel on Telegram. And there's some great guys there. Martin from Knights of Cathena. He's been invaluable in the help that he's provided with smart contract development, getting us up to speed, and so on and so forth. But he's building his own projects too. So he's not the guy to go bug every day about I got issues or this doesn't work. Right now we're fighting a bug with the API indexing and Elasticsearch on Elrond side. The NFTs are there's something broken there, and so we're trying to get them to fix it. And they said they're on it, but that's the biggest issue that we run into is we've got to rely on other community members for support. There's no direct communication, or there's no hotline that we can call for the Elrond team to get quick support so we can keep building. Because at the end of the day, the builders are important, right? That's if you want to have a layer one with a great ecosystem, you need a great ecosystem of developers building projects and growing rapidly and quickly. And I see that being the biggest hurdle right now is just the lack of support, from the dev side. It can be frustrating at times, when you have an issue that you don't know, and the docs aren't exactly kept up to date all the time. There's some things on there that are pretty old, and so you start chasing those down, and you sooner or later figure out, okay, that's outdated, I can't use that, but you can't find the newest version or whatever. So if I had to have a gripe, that would be it. But other than that, I really don't have a lot to complain about. It's a very smooth process, and the docs they do have are very well explained and easy to get up and going as a developer, depending on what language you want to dive into.
Thank you so much for your time, Ryan. That was awesome. A lot of input, and hopefully we'll get the chance to talk sometime soon again and see how things have worked out. All the best for you and your projects, and
Likewise, Lewis. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you. We'll definitely have to do it again. And as long as we can all survive this bear market, I think we're going to come out pretty strong. So we'll see you on the other side, I guess.
Will do. Thank you. Have a lovely evening.
You too.